Huh? And okay, it's recording now. Okay, sweet. All right. Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay.
Alrighty.
All right, folks. I guess is it okay to get started? Yes. Okay. All right. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy and pleased to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Demir. I'm the Rekhi Singh and Professor in Happiness at the Department of Psychology. And today I'd like to talk to you about happiness. And then first, I'm hoping that I will be able to convince you why it's important to be happy. Then I'm going to highlight a few ways to achieve that goal of being happier or becoming happier in general. And for those of us joining via Zoom, I am not sure if you can hear me. Just give me 1 second. I want to make sure that we are on the same page. Please use your screens to show me thumbs up if you can hear me. I will be doing my best to see. Oh, okay. There's a chat. Woohoo! Excellent. Great. Thank you, folks. All right, great. I just want to make sure that we can communicate, and I will be looking at the laptop screen throughout the presentation as well. If you have any questions, probably at the end, I will make sure to attend to those. Thank you. All right, with this being said, why you should behave and how to become happier, but I'd like to get started with some good news, if that's okay. The good news is throughout the week, psychologists have been assessing possible fluctuations that we might experience in terms of our mood, our happiness, and well-being. And today, our happiness might be over here. Today's Wednesday, yeah? But the good news is that we are 2 days away from a big boost jump that is come Saturday. Our mood is likely to be way higher than what we have during the week. So this is the good news, yeah? And then why you should be happy, this is an important question. And then sometimes when I tell people that I study happiness and then I'm a happiness researcher, they say, really? You know, with all the problems in the world, we have the pandemic going on for God's sake, we have, systemic racism in this nation. We are trying to get our rights straight and then everything. And also, not to mention the recession and then all this craziness. And then I'm trying to convince them that, well, actually, this is the time for you to make a difference and be happy. Because according to research, happiness confers tons of benefits. And please do not think that happiness is a luxury with all these problems that we have in our society. It is not. It is a necessity. And then this is the important time for everyone to be happy. And then I'm going to convince you, hopefully, by the benefits highlighted in research. There have been tons of benefits, and I'm going to highlight a few of them. But before we continue, let me share with you the very first personal benefit for happiness and how it is important for your social environment. There have been impressive social network studies. They are assessing, for instance, your happiness and the happiness of people in your environment, right? And over time, they're trying to see if ups and downs in your happiness is going to make a difference in the happiness of your social network, your social group. It turns out that if you are a happy person, the very first person in your immediate social network is going to be 16 times more likely to be a happy person. So your happiness is going to be good for you, but it's also going to be good for your social network as well. I know because of the pandemic, that might not be the right word to use, but happiness is contagious, which is a good thing, right? If you're happy, you're likely to make other people in your environment happy, and it works the other way around as well, right? So this is the first benefit for you in terms of your social environment. If we move forward, the next thing I'm going to share with you is, before I talk about the details in terms of the benefits of happiness, let's make sure we are on the same page in terms of what happiness is and how we measure it. So the very first thing I'm going to share with you over here is the famous tripartite model of subjective well-being. 2 things. First, yes, it is possible to reliably and in a valid way to assess individual happiness. It's a subjective feeling, that's for sure, but we have the means, tools, and validation studies that shows that we can assess how happy you are. But what do we mean by happiness? The tripartite model, which is the dominant model, how happiness is typically assessed in studies, is it has 2 aspects of it: your affective component and the cognitive component. The affective component focuses on how frequently you experience positive and negative emotions, right? And then the cognitive component is focusing on how satisfied you are with your life in general. So these are the 3 components, and collectively they make up that fancy word subjective well-being, aka happiness as we know it in the literature. And there are also other attempts to assess happiness, such as focusing on how happy you are in general. That is referred to as, subjective happiness. It's a global assessment of how happy you are, but it doesn't focus on these different dimensions. But the good news is that we have well-established scales assessing the happiness of individuals. This one that you see over here, the short abbreviation is SPAIN, is assessing the affective component, positive and negative experiences. This one is assessing the cognitive component, life satisfaction. This is an example of a short scale assessing subjective happiness. Now, just to give you an idea, the measures that I shared with you so far in the literature have been used and have been cited more than 35,000 times, which means that they are the measures used in the literature to assess happiness, right? So you are psych, majors or minors, right? So I just wanted to give you this idea. We can reliably measure happiness. With this being said, if we move forward, I'd like to share with you the brief history of research on happiness. I promise that it's going to be very brief. It all started in 1980s, overall interest in happiness. And initial interest was focusing on how do we define happiness? How do we measure it, right? The basics of a new line of research. And then in 1990s, psychologists were focusing on the predictors of happiness. And you can't see this, you're supposed to giggle when you see the slide, but okay, here we go. Hopefully this is going to make it a bit better, right? Okay, play. Okay, here we go. In the 1990s, they were looking at the predictors of happiness. Age is one minor predictor of happiness as well, right? I hope you get the message here, right? Receiving sex makes you happy as you get older, but not younger. Yeah, okay, all right. And then in the 1990s and early 2000s, psychologists identified what we refer to as the benefits of happiness. We know how to measure it. We know what predicts happiness. How about the benefits of happiness? That has been the research. And it turns out that happiness confers tons of benefits. Career success is one of them. Happy people are more likely to be pro-social. Being happy, like I said, is good for your social environment, but it's also good for your community as well. Happy people are more likely, for instance, to donate blood, more likely to donate their kidneys, right? They are more likely to volunteer in their, communities, and then time-wise or money-wise. And what else? They are more likely to have better coping skills. They are more likely to be creative at work or whatever the task they are busy with. Happy people are more creative. They have better health. I'm going to give you some examples about this, and they have better social relationships. These are the 6 major benefits of happiness identified in research. I like to focus on 2 major one of them. The first one is the success in your careers. The second one, health. As for career success, it has been the idea that if you work really hard, nonstop, 24/7, like a workaholic, we have a term, unfortunately, right, that is common in our culture, and then you're going to be very successful and it's going to bring on happiness to you. Well, this is not true. It has been debunked multiple times, and the most recent idea is that if you are really happy, you are going to have better work experiences. You are going to be more successful accordingly. So this has been the idea, and then we have tons of research showing that subjective well-being, how happy you are in general, has the potential to result in stronger motivation at work. You are going to be more creative at work. You're going to miss less days at work. You're going to do much better. And then this is going to result in your performance at the individual level and the performance, the success of your organization that you're working for. Then in an ideal world, perhaps it could be that, the organizations, the places that we work for, pay attention to the well-being of their employees, right? We already see this in an Apple, within Microsoft and Google. They are engaging in activities, offering places where their employees can learn more about happiness or practice happiness, right? So this is a really good thing. In addition to this, maybe a few things will catch your attention in terms of why it's important for you to be happy. They are more likely to be re-employed and then get a second interview. Happy people compared to less happy people. Then they are more likely to be rated highly by their supervisors compared to less happy people. And also happy people, this is really impressive, tend to earn higher incomes compared to less happy people. And the difference between the happies and the least happy group is around $10,000. So happy people, they are making more money. So happiness brings on success. We do have experimental and longitudinal evidence supporting this. So this could be one reason why perhaps we should be interested in being happy or becoming happy, right? Another thing that I'm going to share with you concerns benefits of happiness in the health domain. And happy individuals, in general, multiple longitudinal studies have shown that they live longer, and the range is 4 to 10 years. There have been multiple studies showing that happy people compared to unhappy people, they live 10 years longer. That's a huge difference. That's a decade added to your life. Isn't that nice? Yeah, wouldn't you agree? Yeah, I'd love to live, an extra 7 years if that's possible, right? And also happy people, they are likely to recover faster following a surgery compared to, unhappy people. They have stronger immune systems. They have healthier levels of heart rate variability and so on and so forth. So happiness brings on lots of benefits, confers tons of benefits in the health domain. And it is impressive that happy people live longer. And then it is also funny that I'd like to share with you that there have been one study that showed that even happy orangutans compared to less happy ones, they live 7 years longer. There have been some impressive studies conducted at zoos. Apparently, orangutans, by observing their behavior, you can classify them as happy or less happy ones, right? Happy ones lived 7 years longer compared to less happy ones in one impressive study. So it is not only humans, our species, but also orangutans as well. Go figure, right? But it's just a really impressive, finding. So for loving this in terms of health, as juniors and then seniors, or even minors in psychology, you might be asking perhaps one question. Is it our level of happiness, or is it the change in our happiness that predicts better health? In these longitudinal studies, for instance, we are assessing your happiness right now in 2022, and then we are going to assess your happiness perhaps 40 years later in 2062, and we are going to see who is still healthy, alive, and we're going to link your level of happiness 40 years ago to see if it makes a difference in your health right now. Yeah, there have been studies like this, but how about it is not only the level, but also change in your happiness? Would your happiness going up since the first assessment make a difference in your health as you get older? This has been addressed in a very impressive cross-cultural study comparing the United States to which country is going to tell me the name of this nation in Asia, set of islands? Anyone? China? No, it's not China. It starts with the letter J. What was that? Japan it is. Yes, excellent. Yes, so they were comparing United States to Japan, and it was a longitudinal study. And what they found was, all right, sorry about this. Let's see what's happening here. Okay, what they found was, I'm doing this again. Okay, it's like a Groundhog Day, yeah? Okay, all right. What happened was what they found in this impressive study among community adults in Japan and in the United States, increases in happiness across time, becoming happier overall, predicted better physical health above and beyond your initial levels of happiness. So it is not how happy you were 4 decades ago, but it was your changes in your happiness. Becoming happier contributed to overall health at the end. So overall, I think this line of research could be summarized as, yes, happiness feels really good, right? It feels good to be happy. It's a positive emotion, but there are also tons of benefits provided to the individual as well. And that's why I said, despite all these negative things going on in our environment, this is the time for us to learn about ways to become happier, right? Because it confers benefits to you and to your communities as well. And the people in your environment, they're going to be happier because of you. Remember that initial, finding that I shared with you. So happiness is not a luxury. We shouldn't be ignoring it. Instead, we should be focusing on and then trying to figure out ways to become happier. So these are the benefits of happiness in a nutshell. And the next question then is it possible to be happy? Is it possible to become happier? Well, I have some good news for you. But before I share these good news with you, let's go back to the brief history of research on happiness. Take a look at the number of publications that have increased since 1960s. Just in a matter of decade, we have almost 1,000 articles, empirical studies, scientific studies published on happiness. This is really impressive. And then they are looking at in the last 2 decades on the so-called happiness intervention. Is it possible to become really happier? If so, what works and what doesn't? So that has been the idea. But before we move forward, I'd like to share with you some historical sources of pessimism that perhaps limited the interest on potential happiness interventions in the literature. These sources of pessimism could be described with this happiness pie. Please don't worry about the specific numbers over here. This is just a framework. It's basically suggesting that between 50 to 70% of the variance in happiness, individual happiness, your happiness, can be explained by your genes and your personality, which is huge, which means that if I were to assess your personality right now, I can predict with great accuracy how happy you are going to be in the next 5-10 years. And then we do have circumstances, and then gender, age to some extent, income, how much money you make, they are related to happiness, but they are perhaps very small impact on your well-being, very small, sometimes even negligible. And then also where you live makes a difference. This is broadly referred to as life circumstances. Yeah, where you live is, for instance, one study found, I love that study, those living in California were found to be happier than those living in North Dakota, for instance, right? You know, is it the weather? Probably, right? It's about 10 months of a winter. Who would like to experience that? And then we do have studies showing that, you know, the genetic set point is really important for us to address, because they believe that they account for a huge chunk of your happiness. And they move on to suggest that there is this term called hedonic adaptation. The idea is pretty straightforward. It's suggesting that no matter what you experience, good or bad, positive or negative, you are going to experience fluctuations in your mood, not surprisingly. But after a time, say a week, a month, or whatever, you will go back to your set point level of happiness, to your baseline, right? Now, this might be true because, you know, we humans, we adapt, we adjust to things in our environment, and mood is only one of them, right? But this is bad news, because well, how can I become happier if I'm going to be stuck with this basic set point created, set forward by my genes and my personality? Right, this is the idea, and that's why some people were even arguing that we are on a hedonic treadmill. It doesn't matter how hard you try, and they were saying that trying to become happier is as futile as trying to become taller. Right? I wish I was 5 inches taller. Right? I try every day; it doesn't work. Well, I do not subscribe to this argument. Trying to become taller might not work, yeah, but trying to become happier is possible, because is something like this exist? And let me go over this quickly. So this is your baseline level of happiness. Good stuff happens, bad stuff happens, right? But after this, research shows that if you consciously, intentionally change the way that you behave, cognitively or behaviorally, it is possible to experience some changes to have a new baseline level of happiness for yourself. That is, you can become happier over time if you change the way that you behave, either cognitively or behaviorally, right? However, it turns out that this is a process such that it is going to require motivation, effort, and variety, such that, oh, I want to become happier, happiness come to me. It doesn't work that way. You have to be really very active. You have to do stuff, right? Cognitively or behaviorally. But what is also important is there should be a fit between what you do and your personality. This is going to become very clear in the next couple of minutes, but the fit is the key variable that you should remember and then keep in mind. If we move forward, the next thing I'm going to share with you is research identified a bunch of strategies for a happy life, how to be happy and how to become happier. And I'm going to today talk about 3 of them. The first one is, being a kind person, engaging in random acts of kindness, gratitude and grateful. And the last one is going to be being mindful. And if we have time and if you're interested after this presentation, there are a few other ones that I can talk to you. I have some slides, but I wanted to keep it short for the audience today. But before we move forward, because you're psychology students, and I just want to refresh your memory about how the so-called positive psychology interventions, experimental studies, or happiness increasing activities, their efficacy, their effectiveness, their impact on your happiness is studied in the literature. The key word is randomized controlled trials. Does it ring a bell? Yep, it does. Okay, excellent. And then what we do is that we are going to have people either visiting our lab or doing research online, and we are going to randomly assign them to the experimental group or the control group. The control group is going to be assigned something called life details, perhaps, write about what you have done this morning. I woke up, brushed my teeth, went to work. Excellent. That's it. This is a control activity as opposed to the experimental group. You are going to be assigned to do something that has been shown to bring on happiness to people, right? You will be comparing the happiness in this group to this group before they start the activities, after they start the activities, a few weeks after the activities, because we want to see how long the impact lasts, right? Just because you did something for a week, right? Kind acts, are you going to become happier? Probably. But what matters is, what is critical is, how long is this going to last? Is it just a sudden burst? Or are you going to maintain, sustain that new baseline that you create? Yeah. So that's why we need to gather data from these, people multiple times. If we move forward, two essential points I'd like to share with you. Guaranteed by the Declaration of Independence in this great nation, the pursuit of happiness is cherished and valued. Yeah. Excellent. However, when we talk about the pursuit of happiness, I invite you to keep this idea in mind. It is not ideal, and it is not what psychologists suggest, to be happy all the time. And then I assume you are familiar with this image that we have here. Who is this person? Mona Lisa. And then researchers at the University of Illinois, they created an AI software, and they, after coding, they asked the AI software to figure out the level of positive and negative emotions on the smile, right? Because is it really smiling, or is it some type of anger, envy, negative emotions? And this is what they found: 83% positive, 17% negative, which highlights that it is great to experience positive emotions, but it is also perhaps okay to understand and appreciate and accept those negative emotions that we have. Related to this, there has been this great perhaps interest in the idea of toxic positivity in the media, not necessarily in the literature, and they're suggesting that people sometimes might have a tendency that no matter what happens, you should always be happy. Are you crying? Don't cry. Smile. Everything is going to get better. Are you upset? Why are you upset? There's no reason for you to be upset. I want you to be happy. Be happy all the time. Leave me alone. Let me enjoy my sadness. Let me cry, for God's sake. Right? So this that toxic positivity is always saying that everything should be positive. No, it doesn't work that way. It is not possible to live a life that way. What matters, however, is the prevalence, the predominance of positive feelings over negative feelings. If your overall affect balance is displaying that predominance, then you're good to go. The message is, it is okay to experience negative emotions. It's okay to be in peace with those, moments of sadness, anger, whatever that might be. What matters is the frequency of positive emotions over negative emotions. Am I making any sense? Yeah? All right. So please keep this in mind. The second message is, just because you did one particular activity, just don't sit down and wait for, okay, when is it going to kick in? I was a very kind person today. It's getting late. Why am I not happy? It doesn't work that way, because as you will see, sometimes the effects are going to be imminent. Sometimes it shows up a week later. Sometimes it might even show up a few weeks later. So we do not know for sure. So please don't have this idea that just because you did something, expect to be happy right away. It is not the process. Okay, those are the 2 points I wanted to highlight. With this being said, finally, we can get started with the first one, engaging in random acts of kindness. The structure is the task is pretty straightforward, such that, let's see, you are asked to engage in random acts of kindness, either towards strangers or people in your immediate social network, multiple times during the day or during the week. The frequency could be adjusted easily, such that I might be asking you, for instance, Rebecca, right? I want you to pick a day during the week. Give me a day, which day is going to be your favorite day? Friday. And Friday for the next month, every Friday is going to be a kind person day. Every Friday, you're going to perform 3 or 5 kind acts. And at the end of Fridays, you're going to write down what you have done and for whom. And Fridays, you're going to do this multiple times. We can adjust the frequency, but this is typically what is done in kindness interventions. Or perhaps without even doing this, at the end of a week, we'll be just asking you how many kind acts you have performed this past week. right? So the idea is to engage in random acts of kindness towards strangers or people in your immediate social network. It doesn't matter how big or small, right? The acts are what matters is you being a kind person and performing a kind act. And here are some examples. These are my favorite. Back in when I used to live in Flagstaff, Arizona, right? That cheap place I was talking to you about before the presentation, compared to, of course, California. It's I used to have some, coins in my pocket whenever I was going downtown or other places. I used to feed, the empty or expired, parking meters, right? So this is, nobody needs to know about this, but it was, making me, happy. And I'm sure people who were avoiding tickets as a result of that might be happy as well, right? So this is just one example, and I'm curious to see if we have anyone in the audience that can tell us some acts of kindness you have performed in the past couple of weeks. Something that comes to your mind. Yes, please.
Something super simple that easy that everybody does is hold the door
Okay,
open.
that counts. Excellent, very good. Those of us joining via Zoom, I will listen to you as well. Just let's focus on the audience here first. Any other examples, any kind acts that you have performed the past couple of weeks? And other ones?
I wrote a random letter to my grandma, a watercolor paint.
That's excellent. Very good. I like that. Very cool. Anyone else? Kind acts? Okay, let's see if we can hear from our audience, and I might. Okay. The chat. Yes, Japan. Yes, Tavida, you got that. Okay, I feel like an Internet Explorer, right? That the browsers. Oh yes, Japan. Well, that was what 15 minutes ago. Sorry, I missed that input. So, are they allowed to talk or?
Yeah, either talk or put it in the chat. Either one.
I see. Okay, folks. So those of us joining via Zoom, are you interested in sharing any kind acts that you have performed recently or in the past couple of weeks? Anyone? Okay. Okay, well, we will try next time. Okay. All right, folks, thank you. Sorry if you can't hear you, but all right, so now we have to do this so that you can see the screen. So these are kind acts, and then just imagine that you are dedicating one day of the week for this particular purpose, right? But the question is, does it make a difference in your happiness? Take a look at this. Okay, how can I move this away? All right, so is that better? Maybe. Let's see. All right, kinda. Kindness, does it make a difference? This is one of the studies that I wanted to share with you. The experimental and the control group. The control group writes about their daily tasks before the intervention. This is how happy they are. After the intervention, after doing kind acts for a month every Friday, this is where they are. And take a look at the follow-up after 2 months of performing these kind acts. First of all, their happiness is significantly higher than where they were before the experiment. And take a look at the trajectory. They were able to maintain that small increase in their happiness, sustain that level of happiness, right? This is one study. And then all right, you're still a bit late. Okay, Internet Explorer, let's move on. Okay, well, this is one study that I did back in Arizona together with my students. This is we assess their happiness. So, the baseline before the study, post-intervention after they complete kind acts for a month. 2-week follow-up and 6-week follow-up. Take a look at the trajectory for the happiness of people in the experimental group who did kind acts. Do you see any increases in their happiness? Are they maintaining that jump in happiness across multiple weeks? Is that good news?
Yes.
I think yes. Thank you. Yes. And then how about the control group that were only assigned to write about daily tasks? Do you see any change in their happiness? They were able to maintain that level because they didn't do anything cognitive or behavioral. Yeah. All right, here's another study comparing kindness and control. And this was the experimental group before the study, and take a look at 4 months later where they are. Kind acts. And then how about those in the control group? Okay. Okay, we're going back and forth very fast. We already talk about this. Come on. All right. Come on. Okay. I appreciate your patience, folks. Thank you. All right, not good with technology apparently today. All right, okay, so this was the study I was talking about. This is the trajectory for people performing kind acts compared to those in the control group. So the point is, kindness, does it make a difference? Yes, it does. Engaging in random acts of kindness has the potential to make a difference in people's happiness. But the question that you should be asking is, does this activity fit you as a person? Would you consider engaging in this activity in the future, right? And then if the answer is no, that's okay. No worries. But if the answer is yes, you can keep this in mind as potential, future activities to engage in. But if it doesn't, no worries, because we're going to talk about one more, that is the idea of gratitude. Practicing or expressing gratitude is a very great way of boosting one's mood in general. In terms of practicing gratitude, the task is very easy and straightforward, such that you can keep a gratitude journal and count your blessings. This doesn't have to be in a religious sense, it could be in a spiritual sense as well, right? What are you grateful for? What are you thankful for? And you can do this daily, but if it's doing something every day is too much, we don't want this activity to be a burden for you. You can do it weekly. It doesn't matter. You can adjust the frequency accordingly, right? So this is expressing, your gratitude. Practicing gratitude, you can write 3 good things, that day, daily or weekly again. And the idea is, again, folks, keeping calm and not getting bored. And I'm curious to see if we have anyone in our audience that would answer this question. What are 2 things that you are grateful or thankful for that you can share right now? 2 things.
My home and my dog.
Excellent. Very good. You're thankful and grateful for that. Excellent. Thank you.
My health, like my mobility, I was like rushing over here
Uh-huh.
today, and I was like, oh, I'm so happy that my legs are like working.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like almost ran here with the coffee, the
Uh-huh.
balloons, and so I was happy.
That's excellent. Very good. Yeah, we sometimes take those for granted, but look at this, right? So this is really great, actually, right? Without having any issues and problems. I do this practice with my son every night when I'm putting him to bed. And then last night he made me giggle. He said he's grateful for frogs. I said, why frogs? I have no idea. He came up with a ridiculous explanation, but the frogs and then toys that he was grateful for. I said, great. Okay, as long as you're grateful for something. Anyways, thank you for those 2 examples, folks. And the next thing I'm going to share with you is that if you're interested in making this as a habit, the online, you can find a bunch of fancy looking, good looking journals such as this one, even giving you specific instructions, or you can keep, this is my favorite that I'm doing with my son, a gratitude jar. The idea is very straightforward. Get a jar, a fancy one, or you can work and then make it fancy, look fancy, right? And the idea is every day or every couple of days, you put on an index card or a small post-it what you're grateful for at that moment, put in this jar. The task is wait for 365 days at the end of the year with your loved ones or with your son that I'm doing right now this week. We are going to open the jar and then go over what we're grateful for throughout the year, right? So there are tons of things that you can practice gratitude. Another way is expressing gratitude, which is similar to what you shared with us in terms of a kind act, writing a thank you note to a significant other. In this one, the idea is you are going to write and then deliver in person, if possible, if it's not a pandemic, yeah? To someone who had been especially kind to you, but you never had a chance to properly thank them. It could be your mentor, it could be your professor, it could be your best friend, it could be your mom, dad, relative, it doesn't matter. Right? What matters is you're going to write a heartfelt letter and you're going to express your thankfulness. Dear mom, dad, over these years, you have been my main, #1 supporter and a cheerleader. I cannot thank you enough if I'm at this place today. It's because of you, yada, 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 right? So you get the idea. So this is the writing a letter. And then if you ever do this activity, which is very powerful, right? It boosts your relationship experiences and your happiness. Make sure there is a box of tissue around you because there are going to be tears, either on the other hand or you as you're reading the letter. It's just really powerful. My students in my happiness class just did this last week. Every one of them, they said that it was a really emotional experience for them, but they at the same time reported elevated levels of well-being. Now the question is, this is how we practice gratitude. Does it make a difference? Well, this is one of the original studies. Take a look at the placebo group, the control group, and the gratitude visit, the letter group. Before they wrote the letter, this is where they are in terms of their happiness. Do you see a change in their happiness after they wrote the letter? And now take a look at the gratitude visit group, those who wrote the letter, 3 months later. 3 months later, their happiness is still above the happiness that they had at their baseline. Isn't this neat? Yeah. Here's another example. Comparing, please look at the purple and blue bars, the gratitude groups. In this one, they not only wrote a letter, but for an extra week, they kept a journal, writing down 3 good things. Take a look at their happiness before and after, and then a month later. Do you see the difference? Yeah? All right. And then here's another impressive study. This one is impressive. Why? Because happiness was assessed 4 times, 3 months after the original intervention. Then they also had 3 specific groups. Gratitude visit only, writing a letter and delivering it. 3 good things, keeping a journal for 1 week, and then doing both for 2 weeks. First, you write the letter, then the next week you keep a journal. And take a look at what you see over here. Let's see which group that the yellow bar represents. Doing both is going to help you the most in terms of happiness, right? Compared to the other ones. They are all beneficial, but if you're interested in as a psychology student, okay, these are great, but which one is best? Well, ta-da, right? If you combine both, you're going to benefit more from it in terms of your overall mood. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right, sweet. And then gratitude, does it make a difference? Yes, it does. It's great, but does it fit you? It's okay if you don't feel comfortable expressing your gratitude. No worries. There are a bunch of other activities that you can move on, because the fit between you and the activity is the key thing. And what is also important is that if you know that this activity is going to make you happy, but if you're not enjoying it, if you're not motivated, if you're not showing any effort, it's not going to help you. It's not going to benefit you. Please keep this in mind. That's why if it's not helpful to you, that's okay. But if it's good for you, keep this in mind as a potential future activity. Yeah. If we move forward, the last one that I'm going to share with you today is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the process of openly attending with awareness to one's present moment of experience. That is, since the presentation started, you have been here, you have been contributing, looking at the slides, but this is an example to being mindful. You are at a presentation, you are looking at the presenter, looking at the slides, thinking about happiness. But it is a human nature. The opposite of being mindful is referred to as mind wandering. And it has been shown that between 30 and 50% of the time, half the time in large scale studies in the United States with college students, people are thinking about something that is not related to the task at hand. Yeah? So this is mind wandering, and this is very common. And then one question that has been used to assess this is, are you thinking about something other than what you're currently doing? Do we have any volunteers to answer this question? Have you thought about something other than what we are doing right now since the beginning of the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you for being honest. That's completely normal. I even did. I was thinking about my son and what to cook for him tonight, right? So just for 10 seconds, sorry. But I had to, and then, came back. Okay, focus, right? So this is normal. This is mind wandering. And then the frequency, of course, also matters. Some people, there's a chat. Okay, so, all right. Oh. Let's see what we have in the chat. Oh, yes. Okay. Jordan, that's totally okay. That's completely fine. Thank you.
I want to see how much battery there is so it doesn't.
Sure.
So, okay. Just want to make sure that
we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. We are good. Okay. Oh, of course. Yeah. All right. So let's put this away. All right. So this is mindfulness, and I appreciate you being honest. Just quickly, I was giving a presentation to a very large group of people online, right? Oh my goodness, during the pandemic, 400 participants. And I asked this question, and we used the Zoom option via survey. Oh my goodness, it was embarrassing. 65 of them were mind-wandering during the presentation. But what am I doing here then? I'm just talking for, anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. But this is normal. This happens. But as future scholars, we should be asking the following question. Does it have any implications for happiness, mind wandering? And take a look at what the researchers found. The happiness of people who are mindful, present focused, to those who are mind wandering. Now, don't get me wrong, we all do mind wandering. It might happen once or twice, but when it becomes chronic, when it happens all the time, it is not going to bode well for your happiness, right? That's why interest in mindfulness as a practice increased significantly in the literature. And then people have been designing experiments and to practice mindfulness. You can practice mindfulness in 1 minute, right? Focusing on your breathing and in your environment. Or there are other ways you can practice 8 minutes of mindful breathing every day in some experimental studies. Or you can do it 10 minutes a day for 10 days. But what is really impressive is that there is this program called mindfulness-based stress reduction. That is a program that lasts for 2 months. You sign up for this. You know, every week you learn about something, you practice mindfulness, right? So there are different ways to practice what mindfulness is, breathing techniques and meditation and so on and so forth. And if you're interested in this specific topic, let me share this with you. All right, okay. If you go to mindful.org, you're going to find free daily practices, suggestions, tips, and so on and so forth. I mean, again, it might not be for everyone, but if you're interested in learning about free resources, this web page rocks. It is really useful, user-friendly, and then free resources for everyone. Then the question is, mindfulness doesn't make a difference. This is one study. All right, I need to move this again. Sorry. All right. Oh, okay. How about we put you up over here this time? All right. Mindfulness doesn't make a difference. Those in the control group and those who practice mindfulness for a week, right? Do you see a change in their happiness from pre to post? Yeah. But the question is, how long does this last? This is one study looking at 2 months later and 1 year later after people participated in mindfulness, based stress reduction technique that lasted for 2 months, right? The control group and the mindfulness group before the experiment, they are similar in terms of happiness. Post-treatment, interestingly, both groups showed increases in happiness. But how about the rest? What happens to the control group? Maybe they're going down, but what happens to those who practice mindfulness? Do you see an increase in their happiness? Yeah. And now here comes the most favorite study of mine. Take a look at the time difference between the pre-test and the post-test. Those who practice mindfulness in that 2 month, intensive, experience compared to those in the control group that didn't do anything. They were assessing their happiness multiple times, but to simplify the findings, even 6 years later, look at those who practice mindfulness and who in the study made it a habit to practice mindfulness. Isn't this beautiful? Yeah. So the point is, if you want to become a happy person, if you want to become happier, we have the means, we have the recipe for you, right? So mindfulness, does it make a difference? Yes, it does. But again, the fit between you and the activity is really very important. If it fits you, brilliant. Whenever you have time, you can practice this. If it doesn't, there are other ones, and I can talk to you about them at the next presentation or next time, right? So the point is it possible to become happier? Yes, it is. And it is important for you to be interested in becoming happier, and your effort is very important, right? And the variety. There is research showing that gratitude might be good for you, but if you practice gratitude but nothing else, it is not going to make a big difference in your happiness. Variety is the key. Perhaps you can dedicate, right, 1 month to mindfulness, the next month to kindness, the next month to gratitude, the next month to savoring. The variety is going to help you a lot in the long run, according to research. And also the fit is going to be really very important, folks. Take a look at this impressive study that showed that people who believe that intervention, that is the gratitude, writing gratitude letters, if it fit them really very well, take a look at the dotted lines over here compared to those who said there's a low fit, they are less likely to benefit from that activity. That's why I've been highlighting this. Does this activity fit you as a person? If it does, great. If it doesn't, we can find something else. And if you're interested in reading a book, and an easy to read book on another academic book, right? The boring ones I'm talking about, yeah. This is a perfect book. It's one of the best sellers in the literature. The Happiness Project, Gretchen dedicated each month to one happiness promoting activity, and she honestly writes about her reflections, right? This is a great book to talk about, and thank you. And I will be happy to have any questions that you might have. Thank you, folks. Questions, comments?
Are you having Happiness Day?
What was that?
Are you having Happiness Day this semester?
This semester, the International Day of Happiness, you might not know this, but United Nations dedicated March 20 every year to be the International Day of Happiness. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic and lack of clarity whether we'll be back on campus or not, this semester we couldn't do it. But next semester, next spring, we're going to have a big International Day of Happiness on campus. Yes. Yep, excellent. Any other questions? Any other comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
On the study, so the individual, the participants, they were, the results were based on like the Likert scale survey.
Uh-huh.
And that's how they have.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. They are focusing on, giving you a, scale, and then they're taking the mean of your responses, but they are taking the mean of the group, of course, as well, right? In those studies. Yeah. All right. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, we have 3 questions. Lovely. Okay. Oh, thank you, Tabitha. Thank you. Oh, thank you, folks. I appreciate it. Yes. And I'm glad you're motivated to practice being mindful. Yes, that's certainly important. I have a bunch of book recommendations, but if you can send me an email, I will be happy to send those recommendations. Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. Any other questions? Last chance. Well, I appreciate, folks, you having me. It was a great pleasure. Thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your week and have a great rest of your semester. Thank you. Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll see you everybody at our next psychology meeting. Thank you for coming.
Hi, thank you for the presentation.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Bye, Julia. Thank you.